connect with you. I'm going to ask Allie to go ahead and record the session. Thank you so much. We do post these. I wanted to let everyone know as well, because we got quite a few questions last time about wanting to watch the recording. And so we do put these recordings up on our YouTube channel. So feel free to go and watch some of our previous sessions along with this evening. It should be posted within the next few days. And if you have a question for our speaker tonight, feel free to put that in the chat. Or if we have time at the end of the program, we'll definitely be glad to open that up. You can ask your question to Mr. Romanelli live. But most importantly, you should all have received your wonderful chocolates in the mail. We were fortunate to work with Boston's Chocolates, who we're developing a relationship with, and they were nice enough to send you some wonderful truffles. They did look delicious. I did not get one, but I hope that you all received those today or yesterday. And so go ahead and pull those out and have those ready. And I think David mentioned to me earlier, I hope they haven't eaten them yet. So they did look delicious. But anyway, for those of you who did not register in time or have not received your chocolate, you can use any kind of chocolate that you have at your disposal. So tonight, let's go ahead and get started. Tonight, our guest that we have with us is David Romanelli, and he will be leading us through a time of meditation and relaxation. He is currently a best-selling author and brings a unique and entertaining approach to today's pressing challenges that we all face with work-life balance, stress, information overload, and just the overall desire to live a happier, healthier life. He fuses ancient wellness practices with modern passions that give people accessible tools that they can use to overcome stress, which we can all do, focus their mind, and improve relationships at work and home. So we're really excited to have David with us this evening. Thank you so much, David, for being with us. And I am going to shush and let you take it off from here.
All right. Thank you so much. Sometimes I do have internet issues. So if I'm doing, you guys have to tell me and I can go to a different place in my home.
Okay,
so
we'll let you know.
Kind of keep my antenna up, but it's really an honor to be with you guys tonight. I'm going to share my screen so I can get everything going here. And let's see. All righty. So I'm talking to you tonight about happiness. I know it's about meditation and chocolate, but I have a saying, happy is the new healthy. And how do we find joy, especially in challenging times in our life? And I've been experienced that firsthand over the last few years. And when I was asked by Jennifer to speak to the NOCC, it really rang true in my heart, because it was almost exactly 2 years ago that my 3-year-old daughter, Cooper, woke up with a mysterious limp in her leg, and we didn't know what the deal was. We took her to the pediatrician. They said, it's probably no big deal. If it doesn't go away in a week, come back. We'll do blood work. It didn't go away in a week. We went back, did blood work, and she was diagnosed with leukemia. So as I'm sure so many of you can relate to, when you get a cancer diagnosis, it's very unexpected and it hits you in so many ways. And we've been through hell, and now she's doing great. But the last 2 years, we went through a parent's worst nightmare. And we walked our daughter through cancer treatment, and she's been in remission for 2 years now. And she's living her best life in pre-kindergarten and got a full head of hair now. And I learned so much about joy and how joy relates to cancer, because I will tell you, on day 1 of her diagnosis, another parent who walked a child through this said, look, when they're really young, if you have to cry, go in another room, because the little children don't respond to fear and worry and sadness. They respond to joy and love. And I think to some extent, it's true for adults too, that we need joy in our lives because it helps us heal and it helps us enjoy every day to the fullest. And it's just a happier, healthier life. So I want to share with you some of the lessons I've learned, not only in the last 2 years of our daughter's cancer treatment, but also in my 20 years in wellness. Just to tell you a little bit of my background. So I, after college, took a yoga class. It was 1996. I'm guessing some of you guys listening do yoga, and it was like the most physically challenging, sweaty workout, but also this like profoundly spiritual awakening all in like one experience. And my friend and I, we said, this yoga thing's going to take off. We quit our jobs. We moved to Arizona, where I currently live, and we opened the first chain of boutique yoga studios. So we made yoga really fun. We got rid of the senior gurus and the tradition, turned up the hip hop music, took out ads all over Phoenix that said breathe, and made yoga super fun. And then I started kind of expanding on that, because this was at a time when yoga was still very stodgy and traditional and intimidating to people. And so I went all over the country and I continued this mission. How do we get more people doing yoga? Because when people are doing yoga, the world's a better place. And so I started doing these workshops like yoga and chocolate. And so my good friend from college started a company called Vosges Chocolate, and she mixes chocolate with wild and crazy ingredients, which we're going to get into in a little bit. And when you're do a yoga class and you're relaxed and all your senses are heightened, and you try this chocolate, and it's this profound sensory experience, which isn't so common in our digital world now. And then I did yoga and wine and yoga for foodies and yoga and jazz, and kind of was on this whole journey to how do you get more people doing yoga. And right around 2010, I went to visit my last surviving grandparent in a senior living center in Los Angeles. And I saw how lonely she was and how disconnected all the people in these senior living centers tend to be, because in America, we don't treat the elder population all that well. We kind of put them out to pasture. You know, older people generally don't have a voice in popular culture. They tend to be disconnected from the community. They tend to be very lonely. And so here I was in the yoga world, and it's like the 32-year-old with a big social media following is like our source of wisdom, and the 88-year-old World War II survivors dying a lonely death in the old age home. So I kind of shifted my career path, and I started interviewing people, older people in their 80s, 90s, and 100s. I wrote 2 books about it, which you see on the screen there, and do these events where I bring lonely elders out of the isolation and into the community to tell their stories. It's called Drinks with Your Elders. And I've learned so much about resilience, longevity, health, and especially about happiness. And so I want to share with you tonight some of the great advice I've learned from this elder generation and from my daughter about what you can do right now to turn up the volume on your quality of joy, so that when you get back to the rest of your day or evening and you get into your life tomorrow, you'll feel, and the people around you will feel, a legitimate uptick in your happiness. And because, happiness is important. The research shows that when you're happy, you sleep better at night, so you're healthier. When you're happy, you can focus. When you're happy, you're more likable. When you're likable, people want to be around you. They want to do business with you. They want to, they want you to be their mom and dad and their husband or wife. So happiness is very important. So the happiest person I ever met in all my research was this lady right here. She was also the oldest person I ever met. She was 108 when I met her, and she lived to be 111. So we call that a super centenarian. There's only about 60 people on the planet that we know about who are 110 or older. Obviously, you don't meet one every day, and you have to be kind of wired a certain way. Because if you wake up in a bad mood every day, you're probably not going to live to be 111. And so I want to share with you some of the great wisdom that I learned for the 3 years that I got to know this lady when she lived in New York City, when I lived in New York City. So number one, she was married 5 times. So we call that resilience. And I mean, I don't have to tell you guys in what you've experienced in life that everybody gets knocked down. Not everybody gets up. Some people, you get a cancer diagnosis, or you go through a divorce, or something really difficult happens and people stay down. And there's a decision and a choice that you make. I went on I went to Alaska with my brother. If you've ever been to Alaska, it's like Colorado on steroids. It's really beautiful, but also kind of dangerous. You can't just go on a hike in Alaska because there's a lot of bears. So they actually have bear maulings. So if you go on a hike, you have to have your bear spray, your bear bells, because you don't want to surprise a mama bear. And we went whitewater rafting in the middle of July, but the water was so cold that they made us put on a full body wetsuit and actually jump in the river just to understand what we were dealing with. And so we were whitewater rafting for a couple hours, and the guide pulls the raft off to the side of the river and he says, all right, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your time in Alaska, unless you want to do the class 5 rapids. And so I started getting out of the raft because I wanted nothing to do with that. And my brother says to me, we did not come all the way to Alaska to be wussies. Stay in the raft. So the guide proceeds to tell us, all right, these rapids are really dangerous. If you duck, cower, and hide in the face of the rapids, the force of the rapids is probably going to suck you out of the raft. You're going to be in this freezing cold river. It's hard to get you back in the raft. It's super cold, so you very well could go into hypothermia. And there's bears all along the sides of the river searching for salmon, so you don't want to fall out of the raft. And he said the way that you're going to stay in the raft is you're going to stick your paddle in and you're going to row like hell, and that'll give you leverage. So we pushed off. The force of the rapids was like a 300-pound lineman breathing down your neck. That the water, freezing water exploding in your face was exhilarating. I rode like hell and I stayed in the raft, and it was a great life lesson, because when we're going through something difficult, the tendency is to duck, to cower, to worry, to be afraid. It's natural. And, I think we all have learned that you got to stick your paddle in and engage life when life demands to be engaged. Thoreau said there are no fixtures in nature. The universe is fluid and volatile, meaning that we're all going to go through very challenging chapters and moments in our lives. And we just have a choice to make to be resilient, to get back on your feet, to keep trucking, and to get after it. So it's easy for like the meditation guy to give you guys this advice from, my comfortable desk. What is it that you can do in the heat of the moment? Like, I remember the night my daughter was diagnosed and the pediatrician called, and, it's this, I'm sure you guys remember that moment in your lives. It's the scariest moment of my life. And everything in me wanted to freak out and cry and scream. But I've had 20 years of yoga and meditation, and I somehow knew a skill that allowed me to stay calm. And so I want to share that with you. A few years ago, I took a yoga retreat to Mexico, the tip of the Yucatan Peninsula. It's called Tulum. So it was 2005. We went to sleep at night. We were having the best time. We were told there was a little Category 1 hurricane several hundred miles off the coast, but not to worry. We woke up the next morning. That little hurricane underwent extreme intensification overnight and became a Category 5 monster, Hurricane Wilma, the largest hurricane ever seen in the Atlantic Ocean at the time. It was like 200-mile-an-hour sustained winds. So I went to the leader of our very rustic yoga retreat center, and I said, what's our evacuation plan? And she was crying. They didn't have an evacuation plan. This was 2005. So the internet in Mexico wasn't that great. Mind you, this hurricane was actually bigger than Katrina, which had just hit New Orleans. And so we had to basically, they just closed the nearest airport in Cancun. It was hard enough to get a taxi to Senor Frogs on a lazy Wednesday, let alone with a Category 5 hurricane. So we had to figure out our own evacuation plan. And it was really interesting because a lot of the people on the retreat who were type A, very successful, had all their ducks in a row. When I said to them, we need to figure this out on our own, they freaked out. They were pissed. They reacted. They said things like, Dave, you're an idiot. I never even liked your yoga class. Why did I come on this stupid retreat? Stuff like that. And then people on the retreat who were kind of loosey-goosey yoga types, under the pressure, they were actually very calm and cool and collected. So there's something in psychology that states that, when life squeezes you and you're under duress, that people's personalities change. And some people under pressure, they're super helpful and they're amazing. And, they're wonderful. And some people under pressure, they just lose their marbles. There's a saying, when you squeeze an orange, you get orange juice. When you squeeze a person, you never know what you're going to get. So I want to invite you right now to just do it's kind of like a yoga meditation exercise, and just take your arms to the sides like this. And what's going to happen is we're going to stimulate a little bit of a crisis in your shoulders, and it's going to start to burn a little bit. And the challenge is, and what you do under stressful situations is conscious breathing. So you take over 20,000 breaths in a 24-hour period. A lot of days go by, we don't pay attention to the sound of a single breath. There's nothing more soothing to a stressed out mind than just the sound and feeling of your own breath. It's like the effect that a mother's voice has on a baby. Your breath has that effect on your stressed out mind. And so see if you can just take a moment, and as the burning in your shoulders starts to intensify, you breathe through it instead of react to it. Breathe through it instead of react to it. And it's one of the great lessons that we learn in any of these practices like meditation is how do you stay calm when your outer circumstances are not calm. There's a Zen proverb, if you're patient in one moment of anger, you will avoid 100 days of sorrow. So it's a really important part of being resilient is in the heat of the moment to remember to breathe. So let's go ahead and just take our arms up like this. And then we just slowly bring our hands to the heart, and you notice you're more relaxed, more present. Just something that you can take with you next time you're feeling the pressure. So another great lesson I learned from this 111-year-old lady, the social worker put his hands on her shoulders to help her lie down because he thought she was tired. And she said to him, "Are you propositioning me?" So she was still making those jokes at 111 years old. You know, I mean, we all have to remember not to take yourself so seriously, to loosen your grip when you're squeezing too tight. And we all make that mistake sometimes. I remember when we were in 2020, we spent a lot of nights in the children's hospital, and we had to wait for the doctors to make their rounds. It was like a teaching hospital, and we couldn't go home until they gave us permission. And one time we were there for 18 nights waiting for her immune system to reset after like a kind of a cycle of chemo. And so, you know, my daughter didn't want to sit and wait for the doctors. And she kept pulling my hand and say, "Daddy, let's go on a walk. Let's go on a walk." And I said, "We have to wait for the doctors. We don't want to miss them." And finally, the doctors show up, and she didn't want to be sitting there waiting. And she's like, "Daddy, come on." And I said, "I'm talking to the doctors." And so, you know, my daughter was 3 at the time, and she kind of came down to my waist, and she kind of was so frustrated. She reared back, and she kind of gave me a punch right in my hobberknockers. And the team of doctors was laughing hysterically because on the oncology floor of a children's hospital, nothing funny happens. And they thought that that was really funny. And it came at my expense because I was keeled over and like, oh my God. But everybody needed that kind of release. And we all need to remember every day to laugh, to loosen our grip, to not take ourselves so seriously. So when I was writing my book, Life Lessons from the Oldest and Wisest, I interviewed this 93-year-old lady named Addie. And at the end of a conversation, I said, "Can you email me a picture? Because I want to post it on social media and share it." And she said she didn't have email, and she'd have her granddaughter do it. And so she asked if she could write down my email address. And it took the longest time for a 93-year-old lady to write down my email address. And I was getting really frustrated. For any of you guys listening who are impatient, I'm sure you can relate to getting frustrated. And I recorded the interview. And so I want to share with you this kind of back and forth where she was writing down my email, and you could hear me getting frustrated until I remembered I needed to take my own medicine. So I'm just going to play this for you for a second. It's yeah. So it's Y.
Wait a minute. What?
Okay.
X?
No. Y, like the letter Y. E.
Okay, Y.
Then E like eat.
E, Y, E.
A like apple.
Okay.
H like hat.
Okay.
Dave, D like David.
Pardon? D?
D like David.
I got Y, E, A, H. Now a D?
Yes. Then an A like apple.
Yeah.
A like apple.
Yeah, an A. Again, another A?
Yes. Then V like victory.
Wait a minute. I got Y, E, A, H, D.
Right. Then A like apple.
Again, another A?
Yes.
Thank you.
Then V like victory.
Okay.
Then E like eat. So it's yeah, Dave.
And another E?
Yes.
Okay. Now, are any of these all together, or are they hyphenated, or
all together. And then you put
okay, YEAHD, I mean HDAVE.
Yes. And then you put the @ symbol, the Afro sand.
The what?
You know, the @ symbol, the Afro sand, the A with the circle around it. Like you have an email addresses. It's like,
oh,
you know how they do that?
An A, and you, okay, I got that. An A @ like.
Yeah. And then mac.com. So it's M like mom.
Mom.com.
No. Mac.com. So it's M like mom.
Yeah.
Then A like apple.
Oh, wait a minute. You gave me an A before. Okay, let me tell you what I had. I had YEAHD. What are you laughing at?
It's just funny trying to do this because email is not your generation, so it's so funny.
I know I'm an old fart.
So we just need to remember to laugh, especially if not once a day in those moments when you're squeezing too tight. Another lesson that I learned from this 111-year-old is just the importance of the joie de vivre. So this slide right here, when I created it, it was the 5 oldest people on the planet. They ranged in age from like 115 to 116. And you know, the thread that bound all of them was that they did something every day that they loved. Like one of them would always ask for fried chicken at the old age home and they try to take it away from her and she'd say to go to hell. Another one drank homemade brandy every day. Another one went bowling every day till she was 104. The oldest lady in the history of the world, her name was Jeanne Calment. She died in 1997, 122 years old, and she ate 2 pounds of chocolate a week. 2 pounds of chocolate a week. You can look her up, Jeanne Calment. And so it's just this reminder, you know, so often we put our head on the pillow to go to sleep at night. And we were so busy, we don't have a single moment that we cherished and enjoyed and remembered. And who wants to live like that? So I just want to share with you a couple examples of what you can do to feel the joie de vivre every day. So when I was living in New York City, I walked around the city with a film crew. And we wanted to see if I could give a random New Yorker a 1-minute hug. This was before the pandemic, okay? But, you know, America is such a touch-sensitive culture. And, you know, we generally have very little physical contact. And so I got to walk up to random New Yorkers and I got to give you a hug for 1 minute. It was so awkward. This psychologist went all over the world and sat in different cafes and studied different countries' relationship to touch. So in England, 2 people in a cafe did not touch each other a single time in an hour. America was only like 1 or 2 physical touches. The touchiest, feeliest place in the world is Puerto Rico. It was 180 touches in an hour. I mean, think about it. If you were in Starbucks and there was a stressed out person in line in front of you and you just kind of gave them a little shoulder rub, that would be so weird. I was in India on a yoga retreat, and it's very normal in India for men, regardless of your sexual orientation, men hold hands. You go to the bar, drink a beer with your buddy, watch the soccer game, walk home, hold your buddy's hand, talk about life. I'm a touchy-feely yoga guy. I thought that was really nice. I got back to LA from this retreat to India, and I was back in LA watching the Lakers basketball game with my good friend Brock. It was a timeout in the 4th quarter. I just took his hand and I said, "Hey, it's so great to be watching this game with you. So happy to be here with you." And you know how guys are. He got so weirded out. I think he left the party. You know, it's like touch is just taboo in American culture, and babies need touch to survive and adults need touch to thrive. And I'm not saying that you should be holding random people's hands or giving 1-minute hugs, but there's 1,440 minutes every single day. And if you dedicated one of those minutes entirely to love, it would have the most profound impact on your quality of joy. You know, 1 minute, like send a silent blessing and, you know, just pray and send a silent blessing, write a loving text or email, tell someone you're with how much you appreciate them. It's so obvious, but there are days that go by where we don't do that. And those are days that are a loss. Another example, how do you feel joie de vivre, engage life through your senses? Almost everything now in our culture is digital. So if you're in a really wonderful moment, we get out our phone, we take a video, we take a picture, then that's a part of your phone. That memory is part of your phone, but is it a part of you? And our most powerful memories are almost always associated with our senses. And of all the senses, smell is by far the most potent. When you smell something, it's the only one of your senses to trigger a feeling before it triggers a thought. So scent memories can really move you. Like, for instance, Drakkar Noir cologne. When I was a kid, urban legend had it that if you wore Drakkar Noir, it would help you meet girls. So I remember before my 10th grade semi-formal, I grew up in the Valley in LA, and like all the girls had like the Valley girl hair, and this was my date. And so before my 10th grade semi-formal, I put on a ton of Drakkar Noir cologne. And now whenever I'm like, I was in the elevator recently and someone was wearing Drakkar Noir, and it triggers these nervous butterflies. And it reminds me of that night in 1989 when I'm in the back of the limo with my date, Kim, with the giant hair. And that's the power of Drakkar Noir. And that's the power of scent. So next time you're like in the midst of something that you really want to remember before you take out your phone, ask yourself, what does this moment feel like? What does it sound like? What does it smell like? And right now I want to explore what it tastes like. So I just want to invite you to take one of your chocolates. It's the one that has like the black sesame seeds on it, if I know correctly what you have. And just go ahead and smell it. And then if you can, take a bite. And this has my friend Katrina, who started this company. She really just explores random senses and ingredients. And this is wasabi, like you get in sushi, and ginger and dark chocolate. And just take a moment to notice how it's kind of a meditation when you allow yourself to experience this moment through taste. So we'll come back to the other chocolate later. This is one of the elders that I've met in my research, and his name's Joe, and he's a World War II veteran. He just turned, like a month ago, he turned 103. And you know what he did on his birthday? He went out dancing. Isn't that so awesome? Here's a guy who fought on the front lines of World War II. He said 1 out of every 2 people he served alongside died on the battlefield. He never thought he'd get out of there alive. He's like playing with house money the rest of his life. He cherishes it. He goes dancing on his 103rd birthday. Maybe that has something to do with why he's still going strong at 103. So it's just this reminder to enjoy life every single day. One of the things that stands between most people, myself included, that stands between us and this ability to enjoy life is that we're just going so fast that we miss life. The Greek root of the word sin actually means to miss. So a few years ago, the Washington Post did a very famous experiment where they took this violinist named Joshua Bell, who's like the greatest American violinist, and they disguised him as a street musician, and they put him in a Washington, D.C. subway stop during rush hour. And they wanted to see if people would stop on their way to the subway. So here he is on the right. I think he's in Carnegie Hall. And then he's on the left here, disguised as a street musician. And he had his $1.5 million Stradivarius antique violin, and they surrounded him with hidden cameras. And over the course of an hour, over 1,000 people raced right by the greatest American violinist. They raced right by to catch the subway. Only one person stopped because she just saw him playing in Carnegie Hall and paid like $200 for a ticket. And she was like, "Why are you playing in the subway?" And, it's like, if you watch this video and you have to ask yourself, I don't know if I would have stopped, to be quite honest with you. I'm embarrassed to say. And if we're not stopping for Joshua Bell, what else in life are we missing? So in the Hopi Indian culture, I live in Arizona, so the Hopi Indians are very prominent here. There's a word in the Hopi culture, it's KOYAANISQATSI. If somebody is walking around like a chicken with their head cut off, like all these people who raced by Joshua Bell to catch the subway, they look like chickens with their head cut off. If in Hopi culture, you were like that, you were said to have a disease, KOYAANISQATSI. And it means a way of life that's so unbalanced that you need a new way. And now so many people have this disease. We call it stress. We call it anxiety, just, busy, walking around like chickens with our head cut off. And so how do we slow down so that you make sure you get a moment in your day to enjoy a piece of exotic chocolate, or stop for a street musician, or, spend a little time with the full moon when there's a full moon. And as hard as stopping for a street musician, I think just slowing down a little bit is a big deal. Even if you can't stop, just to slow down a little bit. So a few years ago, I got really into running. And one thing that I found is when I run with the little earbud headphones, they always come out of my ears. And so I started running with the big Beats noise reducing headphones. And I was told when I run with them, I have a striking resemblance to Warren from the movie There's Something About Mary. And one thing I can't figure out, when you're in an urban area and you're on a run and you come to a red light, are you supposed to stop at the red light and your heart rate declines, or do you run in place while you're waiting for the light to change? So a few years ago, I was in LA, and I had my big Beats headphones, and I come to a red light and I'm running in place, and this car of high school kids pulls up next to me, and they rolled down their window, and I could hear they were saying something, but I didn't know what they were saying because I had these big headphones on. So I took them off, and all I could hear was "loser ever." And I said, "Excuse me, I couldn't hear you." And he screamed back at me, "You're the biggest loser ever." And I said, "Leave me alone, go away," which just made him scream even louder. And I just wanted this light to turn green. And then all of a sudden, the kid in the back seat starts shushing all his friends. "Shay, stop. Quiet. And he says, "Dude, aren't you my mom's yoga teacher?" And sure enough, I recognized this kid in the back of the car, who actually used to take my yoga class with his mom. And he's shushing all his friends in the car. "Stop, leave him alone. And he says, "Dude, my mom loves your yoga class." And I said to him, "Does your mom know you're a punk ass bitch?" And I felt so terrible for my slip of the tongue. I totally reacted. There's no meditation there. And they drove off, and I felt so bad. It was like, jogging in place is awkward, and I was asking for it. And I tell you this story because from the second we wake up in the morning to the second we go to sleep at night, it's like, go, go, go. Speed, efficiency, convenience. God forbid the internet goes out, we freak out. Franz Kafka said, "Be still. The world will freely offer itself to you to be unmasked. It has no choice. It will roll in ecstasy at your feet." If we could just come to these pauses, these red lights, and forsake pace for peace, it's in those moments of stillness that we find like the profound healing and the clarity and the synchronicity. So it's just remembering to have a pause in your day. And so I've shared with you a lot of information about happiness, resilience. How do you keep going when you're in a hard period? I mean, you guys know this better than I do. Having a sense of humor, not squeezing so tight. And if not once in your day, remembering to loosen your grip and laugh. The joie de vivre and the things that you can do to let the joy into your busy mind. Eat the chocolate, take a minute for love, engage something through your sense perceptions instead of your digital devices. And, I think like with happiness, the thing with happiness is that we're always kicking the can down the road, and we kind of have this very complex formula, and we say things to ourselves like, "I'll be happy when I get in shape. I'll be happy when my house sells, or when I find a house. I'll be happy when my kid gets into school." There's always something. And what I've found with a lot of these older people that I've interviewed is that most of them are not like that 111-year-old. A lot of elders, you may have experienced this in your own life. A lot of elders are not like totally joie de vivre. A lot of elders are like really worried or really resentful. And those conditions follow you too. So if you're kind of a worrier when you're 41, you'll probably be more of a worrier when you're 51, and really worried when you're 61. And if you're resentful when you're 32, you'll probably be more resentful when you're 52, and crazy resentful when you're 82. And so the answer that I found, and it's hard to give this advice, but I can relate to the cancer journey because, my daughter's still in treatment. She finishes in September. And every day we need to remember to be happy now, to bust open this situation that you're dealing with and find that joy. And so, that 111-year-old, when I said, what are your 3 tips to health and longevity? How did you do this? It's amazing. And she did not say, oh, I have a Peloton. And she did not say I'm on a low carb diet. And she did not meditate. Her 3 tips were sex, vodka, and spicy food. So it's that joie de vivre that we have to just embody every single day. And this is my daughter now, and she's actually got a much fuller head of hair, and she's living her best life, doing amazing. But you go through something like this, and it's the real wake-up call to that joie de vivre is even more important. And so I wanted to invite you now to have that other piece of chocolate, which is the Naga truffle, which is inspired by my friend Katrina's travels to India. And it's got curry, which you usually don't find in chocolate, but you find in Indian food, mixed with a dark chocolate and a coconut. And you might notice the curry. It's kind of a unique exploration or journey of exotic food. And I have a mantra, I call it BFD, a beautiful, funny, and delicious moment each day keeps the stress away. And if you had a way to, it's a great dinner table conversation. What was your beautiful moment of the day? What was your funny moment of the day? What was your delicious moment of the day? Check it off as you go. You don't want to go through a day without being able to check that list off. So yeah, I just want to say to you guys, I really appreciate your taking the time to share the evening with me. I appreciate where you're at, and I don't know exactly where you're at, but I know everyone's on varying places in their cancer journey. And it's always an honor to share our stories and be supportive to each other. One thing I want to let you know about, if you enjoyed this talk and you could use a little more meditation in your life, I have something that I do that every single day. It's called the Blink. I'm going to write the website in here, and it's called theblinkmeditation.com. And every day I send you a 3-minute meditation. It's $20 for the whole year. So it's every single day you get a brand new meditation in your inbox. And it's a way to just press reset on your mind, start your day or end your day with some positive thinking, with some perspective. For those of you who don't have a lot of time, it's only 3 minutes. And if you enjoyed kind of the lighthearted approach that I shared, the joie de vivre, the sense of humor, there's a lot of that in there. And I'm excited to share it with you. And I hope that you'll consider this journey with me. It's just 3 minutes every day where we kind of meet up, and it's not live, but I created the day before, so it will feel very current in terms of like the subject matter and so forth. So, yes, I really am. Thank you so much for the chance to share with you tonight. And I'd like to open it up to you. If anybody has a question or a share, a comment, love to hear from you.
Yes, feel free to unmute yourself if you wanted to ask a question, or just put it in the chat. I don't know, Allie, do we have any questions that have come in, or?
Yeah, there are a few questions in the chat. We had, let's see. Are you still teaching yoga in Phoenix, David?
I'm doing a retreat. By the way, I have a retreat coming up. I'm going to write the link in that too. I don't teach day-to-day classes, but I'm thinking about picking up, one class. I'm going to try to find this link, but I'm thinking of picking up a class. And if so, I will make sure to have your emails. If you sign up for the Blink, I'll have your emails, and then I will let you know when I start teaching a class in Phoenix also.
Thanks. Someone asked, can you recommend how one can quiet the noise in our everyday lives to start meditating? How do you begin?
In bite-sized chunks. I used to I mean, I have people that do it, that meditate with me every day, and it's 18 minutes. And what I've learned is it's a lot to ask in the beginning. So that's why I started doing this thing that's 3 minutes. But even if you just learn to take a moment and close your eyes and get centered before you're in the midst of something that's stressful, or you're about to start an important conversation or go into a doctor's appointment, you'll be better off closing your eyes and getting centered and setting that intention than not doing it. So don't feel like you have to make this crazy commitment. Start just with like a deep breath and closing your eyes. That's my advice.
Okay, someone wants to know, how can we get more of this chocolate?
Okay, so the chocolate, I'm going to write that too, is voguechocolate.com. I'm going to write all this stuff in here. Let's see. So
yes, I also put it in there too.
The chocolate website, joeschocolate.com.
Oh, you've got it right. Yes.
This is my upcoming yoga and meditation retreat that I'm putting in there also.
And that's in person, David?
Yes, that's an in-person retreat. And then I shared with you the daily meditations. There's two ways you can get to it. It's either the blinkmeditation.com or the other one that I'm putting in there. Oh, no, that's not right.
It's hard to present and type on the fly.
Yeah. What kind of meditation do you recommend we start with them when not doing it before? I mean, there's all sorts of types of meditation. It's like there's TM, I'm sure you've heard of that, which is transcendental meditation. But that's a commitment. You take like a training for it. There's, mindfulness meditation, which is sort of like a mantra. That's a centering thought that you kind of come back to when your mind wanders. There's Vipassana meditation, which is like a silent retreat, like quiet for days at a time. I mean, none of it's easy in the beginning. So I just recommend starting small, so it's not intimidating, because it's profound when you can find a peaceful, quiet, sacred space and make it your own, and don't feel like you're messing up or anyone's judging you, or you're doing it right or wrong, because it's just not about that.
Mita asks, can you expand a bit more about the KOYAANISQATSI and what kind of yoga you teach?
I'm impressed you could say that, Allie.
You have to look it up. There was actually a short
different questions.
There was actually a short film called KOYAANISQATSI. You should watch that movie. And it's you have to look it up. I mean, it's a kind of a Hopi Indian saying. I can't expand too much more into it, but when you watch the Joshua Bell experiment and you see these people racing past this violinist to get to the subway, not even noticing, it's like everyone's like kind of running around with the chicken with their head cut off, like disconnected mind and body. And it's sort of sad. And I think we all kind of make that mistake. And so how do you wake up? How do you wake up from that?
I have a question, which I really enjoyed the portion of your presentation about learning from our elders. And I wonder why it seems to be so repeatedly generational that young people discount their elders. And you've clearly done some studies in this, but it seems like, it takes a lot of people don't take time to learn from people who are, the old people who have been here the longest and learn the most. And I wonder why that is.
I mean, generally speaking, the elder generation is not as, you have to be patient. You're not going to get things in quick sound bites. The younger generation expects things to be delivered in short social media posts, images. Keep it quick. Nobody has an attention span. And generally speaking, that's not how the elder population works. It's there's a certain amount of listening that's required. And you have to be able and willing to listen. And I think there's a disconnect there. Some elders I've met use FaceTime, and, you know, there was one Holocaust survivor whose grandson got her onto TikTok and she went viral. So, I mean, I think there's a bridge that can connect the divide, but it's not exactly common.
Yeah. Here's one, maybe one of our last questions. You spoke a lot about sense of smell. Do you recommend any scents to use while meditating?
I mean, lavender is always if you like lavender, it's always wonderful to have that around. And there's better quality lavender. I like these medicinal aromatherapists in Sedona. It's called Wisdom of the Earth. It's like they get it from the French Alps, or all sorts of exotic locations around the world. It's really amazing and healing, but you can get lavender anywhere.
I was going to say, David, I appreciate the part in your talk as well, being someone who's single, and especially during the pandemic, don't get to see a lot of people, but how you talked about how joy and how finding that 1 minute for love each day does not have to be just physical. It can be through sending a loving text or a message to someone, or, you know, something different than just physical touch. I appreciated that. That was great.
Yeah, I mean, I think the world that we create with our thoughts is really meaningful. You know, the thoughts that you put out there and the thoughts that you entertain, and also what you let in your head. You know, how if you're constantly sitting there watching the news, it's gonna be really difficult to be a happy, easygoing, calm person.
Yeah.
But people spend all day watching the news and scrolling through social media, and it's hard to manage your mind when that's the case. So I think that's part of it, part of joy. I didn't talk about that, but
yeah. Well, we really, really appreciate your time this evening, your wonderful thoughts and guides on how we can find a sense of calm and really come back to the important things of life. We really, really appreciate you. And we wish blessings to you and your family, and hope for your daughter to fully recover. And you're just an inspiration. So we thank you very, very much.
Yeah, and right back at all of you for health and happiness. Wishing you so much love. And thank you so much.
You're so welcome. So thank you everyone for joining. And we hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening. Thank you.
Night.
Thank you.
Good night. Night. Thank you.
Everyone. Sleep well. Enjoy your chocolate.
Right.
I'm glad it tasted good.
Oh God. Thank you.
Oh yeah. Hi, Michelle. Got a lot of feedback that it was delicious. Oh, that was great.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much. It was very inspiring. Getting some beautiful text messages from people in our group that just how heartwarming it was. My best takeaways, the 1 minute of love a day. So just thank you so much. Really beautiful.
Thank you. I'm honored and grateful, and we'll be in touch.
Would love that. Awesome. And can you say again? You said that one of your friends created the Vosges chocolate. Is that right? I didn't realize that.
Yes.
Okay.
Like one of my very best friends.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were really nice to work with. I think they reached out to our Phoenix market to do some work with them. So thank you for putting us in contact.
Okay. All
wonderful.
right.
You have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.